My senior year of high school has felt like a joke. Junior year felt like I was being hit with tons of busy work, and it felt like I was expected to put a lot of my free time into schoolwork just to pass a class. Senior year did a full 180 and ended up being a checkbox just to graduate. The shift was really obvious. Looking at my schedule, I instantly noticed how I was just filling classes that I would want to take over classes that were required this year. I only had to take economics, civics, and an English class. Now, it's not just about the amount of required classes being lower than usual, but each class felt completely different from what I'm used to. To give some background, during my first semester, I had 3 classes and an off-roll. I took economics, I was a teacher's assistant for a graphic arts class, and I took AP statistics. Starting off with economics, I was very interested in learning about econ before the school year had started. At the start of the school year, I realized that almost everything we would learn about was essentially just the bare minimum. It was mainly just about personal finance and budgeting. I had already learned a lot of these things when I was in middle school. I remember I would be playing Fortnite and I would want a new skin that would come out, but I didn't have the money to get it. My dad decided to teach me how to budget myself. So I was already just kind of sliding through this class and getting credit for it. But the teacher for this class made me dread going so much. Not only would she go on these weird rants about how she disciplines her children, but she was also a very unpleasant person to be around. A great example of this was when I would turn in an assignment with a small mistake. She would usually comment on my submission telling me how I could fix it. Well, after fixing around 3 or 4 of them, she had commented saying that I can't fix my assignment once it's been submitted. I'm over here thinking how she just told me to fix something, just to turn around and say that I did that all for nothing. I talked to some people in this class and everyone pretty much agreed they didn't like her. Some of these other people also had issues with fixing their assignments, or how she would just rush through grading something and wouldn't take accountability if she made a mistake. Thankfully, this is only a quarter-long class which gets replaced by civics for the second quarter. Now, civics was a very interesting class. And once again, I didn't really feel like I learned too much from it. But I felt like it was a good place to talk about politics and have discussions with people. While we were almost always doing something in the class, it was very obvious that the teacher didn't really care if we got it done in class or at home. He didn't care so much that he literally only wanted to make sure we got it in by the due date, and that if we needed to resubmit something or fix it, then we had the entire quarter to go back and fix it. A similar mentality bled through to the rest of the class. I noticed at times some tables would spend the whole class period just talking about something or playing Uno. The teacher started telling stories to these groups who were spending the whole class period socializing. Now, this teacher is like 24, so he's fresh out of school. But due to this, he ended up being pretty relatable. While I don't remember all the stories he had told, there was one that clearly stood out to me. It was his story about when he turned 18. So when he turned 18, he received a letter in the mail stating that if there was a draft, he was a part of the group that would be chosen. At this point, he thought he was going to war and die on the other side of the world. He later brought this up to his friends at school, and his friends told him it was going to be just like Fortnite. He then thought to himself that he was going to go to war and die with a bunch of idiots. Clearly he didn't end up going to war, because he's now a high school teacher. But it's still a funny story that I probably wouldn't have known if he wasn't so hands-off on his teaching. Moving on to the 2 other classes, which lasted for the whole semester. The first one being the teacher's assistant, or TA, for the graphic arts class. Now, this was probably one of the easiest classes you could take for senior year. Going into my senior year, I already knew I wanted to be a TA, but I only wanted to be a TA for either my graphic arts class or my animation class. Funny enough, these classes are both taught by the same teacher. I've gotten to know this teacher pretty well, as his graphic arts class was the first class I ever had freshman year. On top of that, I knew since it was an art class, I wouldn't have to grade anyone's assignments. For the most part, I was just sitting around doing homework or talking to either the teacher or this assistant teacher, which I'm not entirely sure what her job even is. Either way, I learned a lot about their personal lives and had fun talking to them, as I usually don't talk to my teachers much outside of academics. The only thing I really had to do out of the ordinary was run things to other teachers. It felt like a free period that was still being added to my transcript, and it was like I was getting something out of it opposed to an off-roll. Now, the final class I had for the first semester was AP Statistics. This class was not required, and I took it out of just wanting to learn statistics. Going into this, I thought it was going to be a true struggle for me during senior year, as it was my first AP class. I felt like we were going to do a lot more than a regular class. Starting off the year, it was pretty normal, but it was very basic algebra, and I could already do most of the things we were learning. As time went on, it did in fact get harder, but the biggest difference with this class was that I had the special teacher. I had the teacher who's been contemplating retiring for the past 5 years. My teacher didn't care if we were doing it the right way, he just cared if we learned it. We would have close to no homework, mostly just doing these daily activities which took 5 minutes. The tests we had were very typical tests, but the teacher ended up getting tired of grading them, and decided to just give us study guides for the test. The only difference between the study guides and the test was just the numbers on the problems. On top of that, we would be able to use our notebooks for the last 20 minutes of the test. It was truly an amazing experience after getting hit with multiple assignments each day, and 1 day heads up before tests the year prior. Outside of how forgiving he was, everyone that knew him as the cool teacher. Randomly during the week, he may pull out a taco bar or ping pong tables, or decide we should just relax and watch a movie. One day he even asked around if people didn't have lunch that day, and told them that he needed to get rid of some food before break. Next thing you know, he pulls out a portable grill and a frying pan. He starts frying an egg for a student. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But this didn't last forever. The day before winter break, the teacher hit us with 5 tests the week we come back from break. He told us that he was so fed up with a single student in one of his other classes. From what I've heard, it sounded like he was really getting on his nerves. During break, I was expecting to come back, and I thought he would propose this new plan he had in order to only affect that one student. Well, that didn't really happen. He still made us take the tests, but after a few days, he did bring up that he wasn't feeling mad anymore. And he honestly felt bad for my class, as we were his best class. Not only did he make it really easy for us to raise our grade, but he canceled the rest of the tests. It was a crazy roller coaster that I was not expecting right before the end of the semester. That's about it for my classes so far. I'm currently recording this the weekend between the 2 semesters, so while I do have my schedule for next semester, I'm not expecting too big of a shift in how senior year has felt so far. I feel like a lot of students have also given up mentally, as a lot of students have already gotten into college or they know what they're doing after high school. It doesn't exactly feel like people are motivated to push through towards the end of the school year. It's pretty much what everyone says about senioritis. I also wanted to talk about how big of a joke the student body is, at least for my grade. Leading up to the school year, the student body was out of touch, but at least it was normal enough to seem like everything was going as it should. But oh boy, this school year, they are so far gone. Going forward, I've pretty much given up any hope I've had for events that they direct. It started off with the assemblies and how they really didn't know what they were doing. The assembly itself was fine because it was usually made up of people that spent at least a month perfecting a performance, but the student body group clearly did not know what they were doing. Their mic would peak every other word, and it would sound horrible. Not only did they not know how to fix it, but they thought it was a good idea to raise the volume. I don't even know what they were thinking. Maybe they thought it would raise the threshold for how loud it can be, and it would stop the peaking? But it just made for a horrible experience during these assemblies. Some of the other events they manage are things like school dances, like homecoming. Now, homecoming has been pretty bad at my school for the past few years, but this one didn't really feel right. You'd probably think that a school dance would direct people to the dance floor, or where they have these big attractions that they'd spend tons of money on. But it seems like they were just trying to fish more money out of us. There were these booths set up for food, and some of them were free, but some of them paywall different flavors as a luxury. I remember I grabbed a bag of Doritos, and the guy working it thought I was stealing it. I was thinking it was free because if food is supposed to be free at an event, you'd think that means all food. But this guy is telling me that the Doritos are $1 and the Cheez-Its are free. Like, bro, I'm not gonna pay you $1. In fact, I don't even have $1 on me. The event itself also felt very off. It was supposed to be a jungle theme, which is rather weird, but even weirder is that the only thing that they could think of for the jungle theme was to have this little animal exhibit with turtles, snakes, lizards, so on. Like, did they spend all their budget hiring the guy who upsells chips? Or did they throw this together last minute? Probably the funniest part about this is that the majority of the people at this event weren't even on the dance floor, which in this case was the gym. They weren't even at these booths either. In fact, the gym was practically empty, even though it was considered the dance floor or the big attraction. Turns out most people would rather play blackjack with fake money than dance in a large open room with nobody else in there. Yeah, more people were gambling than experiencing the rest of the event. If they wanted to get more people out to an event like this, they should just market it as a casino and have more of these blackjack tables or slot machines. I would literally lose people only to find them running blackjack with a crowd surrounding them. I personally feel like it's contributed to why senior year has sort of felt like a joke to me. It also doesn't seem like the student body is taking things seriously, and they're just making events or assemblies as a way to check the box, saying, oh yeah, we did that this year. There's a senior event coming up in a few weeks, but thankfully it's ran by the school and not the student body. I may end up making another video about that, but it honestly might be kind of mediocre. I think that's all I wanted to talk about. Alright, bye.